I can't get it.
Taylor has a failure to launch. Come on, Taylor. I know everyone's watching, but don't.
I can't get it.
Don't be embarrassed,
guys.
Open your can of yerba mate. Let's see. Oh, this is really embarrassing.
Wow, this is weird.
Never seen anything like. He's using a tab to. This looks dangerous.
Oh, all right. Now we're talking. The condensation.
You might want to do some more like resistance training.
Oh no, it was condensation.
Strength
Don't worry about
building.
it. Oh, it's good.
Anyway, welcome to the Talkies. Now that we officially have 3 beverages open, we can begin talking about You Were Never Really Here. No, that's not a statement. That's the name of a movie.
Wow.
Yep. Today we watched You Were Never Really Here, starring the always entertaining Joaquin Phoenix.
Always.
And I was just going to point out that this is kind of funny. So here's the short synopsis on IMDb. A traumatized veteran, unafraid of violence, tracks down missing girls for a living. When a job spins out of control, Joe's nightmares overtake him as a conspiracy is uncovered, leading to what may be his death trip or his awakening.
Ooh.
Oh.
Those 2 sentences have more exposition than the movie actually had.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'd say you probably can gather all of that, but barely. It was hard to grasp that he was a veteran, and that he tracked down girls for a living was inferred, but he also could have been a hitman, you know. Anyway, I have a feeling that, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that this was the type of film that you liked the most. I'm sort of in the middle, and you like the least.
Almost.
Let's hear.
Go. Almost. I really liked the film. I really liked it a lot. It's the kind of film I don't like talking about. And and it's the only reason.
Cut his mic. just cut his mic now.
The only reason.
Do you a favor.
Only reason why is because I tend to approach these things objectively. Because as a student of film, I learned a lot of things about how to do certain things, then haunt out to, and then how to break the rules and do certain things. But again, all these things are for intention, and I feel like any film that doesn't have intention is not really doing its job. Not to say that art doesn't have intention. This was super, super, super artsy.
This is no doubt, it's an art house film for sure.
And so it's hard to say objectively what it did right and what it did wrong. So that's why I don't like talking about it.
So is there a line you cross at some point where your film is so artsy that you can no longer objectively say if they're doing things right or wrong?
Well, yeah, actually, the films that you make, Taylor, I'm pointing to Taylor.
What about, he is the line?
He's the line, yeah.
I'm
just...
No, I mean,
he's
like,
over the line.
Like, at what point is a film no longer qualify for your objectification?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Because you can objectively criticize Infinity War.
Yeah.
But not You Were Never Really Here.
Yeah, and
you're saying it's because it's an artistic expression, and therefore, who's to say whether anything they're doing is right or wrong?
That's exactly it, yeah.
I see.
Can you explain a little bit about intent? What you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, well, so intent in my eyes is something that the author wanted to communicate to the audience. Whether it's, I say author meaning controller of the art itself. So the painter, the writer, whoever has a vision, and they want to make the audience see this specific thing, and therefore they communicate it through a medium.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have a vision, or if they just say expression, if they just express whatever is on their mind and hope the audience gets what they expressed, then great. If they just want the audience to just see what they've expressed and don't have any intention in that matter, it's a whole different thing entirely, I think.
Are you suggesting that this film did not have intent?
It's hard to say.
Because
it's hard to say.
I felt that it clearly had intent.
Well, it
obviously
was
telling a story they wanted to tell.
No, they are. But it was like, so, I mean, we can just get right into it, I guess.
Let's get into it.
So, like, the cinematography, for example.
Yes, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah, it was quite good. There were shots that didn't exemplify anything that I thought was going to help tell the story at all. Just exuded a feeling, which again,
this is an objective critic. That's good. You could be objective about that. There's nothing wrong with you saying they shot this wrong to tell this particular story. See?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah.
You could do that. I want you to tear this movie apart. Do it. I can see the rage in you. It's just you just want to let it out.
Boiling.
Come on.
No, there's nothing I didn't hate. I didn't hate the movie at all.
Except for how they shot it.
No, I don't feel like I can.
a hard time discussing it.
Yeah, I don't feel like I can judge it fairly. I feel like okay. I'll just say the things that I didn't like about it. So like, for example, we'll go ahead and go into the shot that I was thinking about was the one that I told you guys in the car on the way was they had this sequence where we see him after he had just discovered the guy he's trying to kill is dead, and he comes down after he takes off his shirt and he just kind of had this nervous not a nervous
in front of the
breakdown.
bed.
Yeah. So he has this breakdown, right?
That was my favorite shot.
Yeah. Well, not that shot.
Okay.
But he has this breakdown. He comes downstairs.
Perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah, it was. And then he goes into the living room, and he has this kind of flashback that's happening in, like, concurrently. That's happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And so he looks into the room, and
He's
he
seeing
sees
all
his
of his
mom.
past traumas.
Right. He sees his
visualized.
mom. He sees himself, and then he turns his head into the other room and sees the girl he was trying to save this whole time. In my head, I'm thinking, oh, okay, fake, because he's having all these visions. But it turns out that the girl is actually real in that other room. You guys both said that, well, yeah, that it didn't trick me at all.
I expected that she was real.
Yeah.
I didn't even feel like they were trying to trick me.
I didn't think they were trying to trick. I don't know if they were or not, but the proximity of those shots together, I feel like, is making the person think that the third person is fake. Mm-hmm. And that's just how I feel it should happen. Like there's a term in graphic design called proximity, where if you group things together, then it looks like they belong together. It's the reason why you have headlines separate from text on the bottom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If they're close together, they look like they're all in one piece. In this, edits that are close together all communicate the same idea.
Yeah.
They're all trauma.
Yeah, they are.
Okay,
All three are trauma.
So let's separate then this whole idea that this is a work of art, right?
Sure.
And let's just talk, because what I find of value in these conversations are there in fact best practices not to express but to tell a story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One of the things this film does is something that the reason I thought Taylor probably liked this the best is because you really like telling stories where all the exposition is largely left to inference, where I'm going to like show one intense emotion and I know exactly where that emotion's coming from, but the audience is going to be left to figure that out on their own. That's complete inference.
Yeah.
Right? And this really did that a lot.
Yeah.
There were all these flashbacks where they just gave you like little pieces, like when there's this one that recurs several times where he's laying on a beach and we just see his feet like he's coming to on a beach or in the sand, a desert.
Yeah.
And they give you a little more of that just to like show that maybe this was in the Middle East on a while he was at war or something, a soldier, but they never give you any more. Like they never explain why this was traumatic, what was he seeing, why was he laying on the ground there, and why he keeps having this flashback. There were others that did the same thing. There was just very little context. Now it communicated a feel, right? Like it got across this idea something traumatic happened in his past. And that's why he's dealing with demons today.
Yeah.
And to the filmmaker, to the storyteller, that was enough.
Yeah.
But to the story receiver, I don't know that it is. You know?
I felt like so pretty much how this movie does approach narrative is exactly how I want to approach narrative in my short film that I'm writing, Overpass.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing where
Yeah.
you just give no exposition, no context.
Yeah.
And you build up this character so deeply and with tons of depth that you just let the actor perform it and infer all this
Yeah.
stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
To me, that gets problematic because I know.
No, continue.
But that works much more profoundly than anyone than actually going through like a 15-minute flashback sequence where we get that point hammered in and in and in and in.
I think you're right. I think that if you can lead an audience to figure out this, if you can rely on an audience's brain to finish telling your story with you, that it's far more profound. But I also think it's way harder to do.
Way harder.
It's really hard to pull off.
Extremely hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this, what you just said, is my golden goose type thing. This is something that I've always wanted to do, is run strictly by inference, by having the audience put it together in their head. The pieces that you make to go there, though, is what I study, right? Like cinematography theory is something that I'm really, really passionate about, and it's about designing shots so that the audience can build certain pieces, can see those pieces, connect something in their mind, and say, "Oh, this," right, and then complete the sentence, rather than just tell them, because that's stupid. I think that's great because it makes the story all the more powerful, all the more empathetic, you know, and I love that. What I don't like is when you have what you said, when you have shots that feel almost completely expressive, so you have a feeling communicated, but you don't have any. It feels like there's no intent. Almost, it feels like there's a missing bridge there. There's just bits of information that it's interesting shots. Sure, it's like really heavy. Sure, we've found something traumatic, but we don't put the things together, and there's no glue in between it.
Yeah, and I think there's, I think that you can always also create some frustration, if not a complete distraction, by not necessarily giving enough information.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Where I was maybe missing some things because I was now trying to piece together this, like, what looked like a parallel storyline that had to do with waking up on a beach somewhere where someone gets shot in the head in the background, and I'm like, where how does this fit in? I'm trying to see how the pieces work together. Where it turns out that was a distraction. I shouldn't have been. It was only there to reinforce this idea that he had trauma in the past.
Right. Yeah.
When you are watching, pointing to Taylor for Audioland, when you're watching a movie, do you constantly put together things in your head also, where you're building up the story as it goes along?
Yeah.
So you are asking yourself questions then, like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, what is that? What is that? To a certain extent, right?
I guess not. I don't necessarily think, what does this mean? I just get something out of it. It's like, oh, that means this.
Right.
I don't ask the question. I let it just like give it to me as much as the film can.
So as opposed to like, well, I don't know.
Which is why
I guess I can't think of an example.
Which is why it doesn't bother me at all when there's a completely expressive shot that's purely tone and doesn't develop a character whatsoever.
And I don't think that everything has to be that purposeful in that way. I mean, sometimes you linger on a nice long shot that does not move the story along, but does build the tone.
Right.
You know, that does raise the sense of dread or something like that.
Well, for example, Mother was entirely tone, right?
Yeah.
There was a point where the story stopped making sense.
Yeah.
And so that's where you and I in the theater were just like, okay, let's just shut off the idea of trying to follow the story.
Yeah. You were actually harming your experience by trying to solve what was happening.
Right. And
at
so
that point.
Yeah. And so in Mother, all the shots and story and actions that took place were expressive, but they were but they weren't trying to hammer anything home for the audience. I mean, maybe Aronofsky, maybe was trying to do something with a religious theme, but but when you watch the whole movie and then at the end, after you got everything, you're just like, wow, what an experience, instead of wow, what a story, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the story has more to do with making sure things are clear as opposed to making sure things are expressive.
To me, this film is almost perfect when it comes to telling a story that way, because I felt like the story was extremely clear to me. There was one thing that didn't make sense, or that I didn't catch, and that was it took me a while to piece together that Joaquin Phoenix is his niche is rescuing little girls,
right?
And how he obtains his clients. Those are two pieces that I didn't gather immediately, and it took me a while to like put that together.
It's funny because I got those right at the beginning. That's funny.
I spent most of the movie thinking about his trauma, and I really loved how they showed that through. I think my favorite scene in the whole movie was when they show him, they flash back to him in like the Middle East or something, and he gives a chocolate bar to this little boy through a chain link fence, and he grabs it, and then another little boy runs up to him and kills him and takes his chocolate bar.
Yeah.
See, I didn't get that at all. I didn't even know that's what happened.
I didn't figure out that what had happened. That's what happened until after the movie, when thinking about it. Yeah. But that brings up a whole nother point, because this movie to me felt a lot like Phantom Thread. And the reason I'm making those parallels is because both of them, what I like about this type of storytelling is the story keeps unraveling after the movie is over. Like, I'm still thinking about this movie and thinking about Phantom Thread in a way that I don't need to after Infinity Wars. Like, there's Infinity Wars and comic book movies and the blockbuster genre has heavy exposition, right? They take you by the hand and make sure you understand everything that's going on, even if it means some lengthy flashback where they say, in the beginning, this happened, and then these people fought with these people, and that is why this magical stone fell from the heavens, you know. You have all of that context. Whereas in a, say, Phantom Thread, which had like a weird ending, it ends, and I'm still trying to be like, oh, man, I'm thinking about that ending all the time. Like, they stick more. A movie like this stays with you, I think, in ways that a more heavy-handed movie wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it didn't answer all our questions.
And I think that's definitely a thing that happens. It does stay with you. I don't say heavy-handed movies are better. You know, they may get their communication across clearer. I think clearer communication in that way is weird. I really, really enjoyed the way this movie's story told. Like, almost everything. There was, like, so little dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, you talked about how there's less dialogue. Yeah. There's actually more dialogue in A Quiet Place.
There's more. There is, I'm sure. There's more dialogue in A Quiet Place.
And I loved that so much about this film, because I absolutely love visual storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the best kind of thing. And there are things that I think really worked, and I think there are things that didn't work as well.
Well, if we go back to intent, I tend to think that the intent of this filmmaker / author, as it was adapted from a book, was to share a story about trauma and moving beyond it.
Yeah.
Of living in the shadow of severe trauma. That's to me what this was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And helping people to identify and see that and feel it, even to an absurd level at times. At the very end, he has his dreamed up suicide moment,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
But again, that was a sort of a visualization of the way someone that's had that kind of trauma might be experiencing life. Like, I could blow out my brains in this diner, and the waitress would still just walk up and hand me a check.
Yeah.
with blood on her face.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to
Yeah.
her.
And that's a kind of a beautiful kind of interpretation that you get from that. Not that the content is beautiful, but
Right. Well, because I mean, this is some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
When you think about what his character's job is to track down this girl who's been abducted into sex slavery and save her.
Yeah.
If it was a movie about that, then they would have developed out more empathy for the girl and that story and what was happening around it. We would have felt some real tension about whether or not that girl is saved and horror at what is happening to her.
Right.
All things you would feel if that was the focus of the story, but that isn't what you feel. You're trapped inside Joaquin Phoenix's head, and that's because this is about trauma.
Yeah. I'm about to go like very, very long.
Oh,
in
crap.
Speaking.
All right.
So I just wanted to know.
Hold on.
Did you have any comment on what he said?
Yeah.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, violence is instilled in Joaquin Phoenix's whole life, to where it's just like he grew up in this violent household, and he found comfort in suffocating himself.
Yeah.
And he grew up to go to war and experience violence and one cause violence to others intentionally and secondhand.
Experience it on himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he also it's like there's even like shots on the news where it's just violence is just his entire life is just violence.
Yeah.
Right. And so
something
if her
about that is really
if
interesting.
Lynn Ramsey, if her intent was to help us see that experience and feel it and empathize with it, then her intent was meted out expertly, even though it was a hard story to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's moment like I think the heaviest moment was when the heaviest moment where I really felt about Joaquin Phoenix living with violence was when he was on the subway tracks and just like staring into the tracks, like
That was so
wanting
good.
to like fall in and just die.
Yeah.
It's like, man,
There was
it's heavy.
Who was the girl that was watching him? Was that just a random girl?
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah,
so.
it
Some
felt like
stranger.
she had some importance, but they didn't really get into that.
That's something interesting that you said that, because that's kind of part of the qualm that I have.
Right. That was definitely like there were shots like that. We were like, oh, this is a clue,
Right.
and it wasn't.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's similar to what you said about the waitress, where she was about to watch him jump onto the tracks and get hit by a train.
Maybe that was it. Yeah, like she's almost like okay with watching him
Yeah.
do it,
Well,
but not intervening.
It's funny because what I got from it, because I didn't think she was actually important for some reason, but when I saw that, it must have been the rhythm of the edits, I think. When I saw her watching him, I thought she was a random girl who had been beaten.
She had a scar in her face,
Yeah.
open wound or something.
And while she was watching him, she felt like, or I thought she thought that him jumping onto the tracks, she was going to see if he was really going to do it, and that she could understand why he would do something like that. Like all this flood of understanding through one little look and one little shot, and it's great, but it's something that I got, something that nobody else probably would have got, or something very different that other people got.
Yeah.
And in a way that's really nice. I really like that art can do that. I also really hate that art can do that.
Explain.
When you said that something about the cinematography, you said that we're trapped in Joaquin Phoenix's head. We are definitely trapped in his aura.
Yeah.
Like everything that we experience.
It's
in this
told
movie
from his perspective.
is from his perspective. It's not, however, told with his perspective. It's about his perspective, but not necessarily with, because we get clues about what happened in his past throughout the movie as we continue, and we learn more about him as we continue with the movie. If we were to be with him, if this was like a story where he says I this, I that, then it would be every shot in the movie would be what he is experiencing or what he is doing.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think this movie ever left him.
It didn't.
There's no scene that takes place away from him.
Well, so it's hard to talk. This is so theoretical. So much of this is theoretical, but books are written in first person, third person, person limited, and all that.
Yeah.
Movies, I feel like, have the same type of voiced kind of thing that they have. If a movie is first person, I believe what that means is that every edit, cinematography shot, everything in the movie is about what the person is experiencing at the moment. If we want to tell a story from this person's perspective, it means that anything that they learn, we learn at the same time, and anything that they already know, we already know at the same time.
I get that.
If we're doing a third-person type of view movie, which is, I believe, what this was, like, we're learning about somebody, and we're gathering clues about this person, not necessarily leaving this little area, but just getting clues about it. And while he knows something
we did
completely
see
different,
what was in his head.
That's what was weird. That's what I didn't like.
Okay.
Right? Because then we go back into his perspective and then back out and back in.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it felt like
third-person storytelling mixed with his own flashback stuff.
Exactly. So that would be called third-person omniscient in books, but that's where they go into everyone's mind as opposed to just the main character. But yeah, that confusing voice, is just a little thing. But again, now here's the point. The point is that isn't necessarily an error. That's just what that person wanted to do, that director wanted to do,
Sure, I take issue with that though.
Yeah,
because I think that if it impeded telling the story or communicating the intent, then it was an error.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Okay.
That's the only reason we're having these conversations.
I don't think it did that though.
And you'd be right.
He might be wrong.
You're right and wrong, as are we. That's my thing with art. Anyway, continue.
I'm just for the record. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
But you agree with me, is what you're saying?
No, I'm right.
You're right.
You just said I'm right and wrong, and I disagree with you.
I disagree with your disagreement.
With D.
Not that you think you're right, but
for the
that
record,
you think
Taylor's pointing at D.
Disagreeing.
No, Taylor was pointing at Kenny. Anyway, continue. What were you going to say about the voice thing?
Oh yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I didn't think it detracted from the storytelling, and it didn't bother me at all.
There you go.
I understand what you're describing.
Yeah.
But I never became conscious of that conflict.
I didn't until afterwards, but there was a dissonance there.
I felt like this was largely all from his perspective.
For that shot where he's in the steam room. There's a long shot where he has the towel over his head.
Yeah.
He pulls it out and he does like big breaths or something.
Yeah.
But it's almost a 1 minute shot.
Yeah.
Of him just breathing.
Yeah.
Or just being there.
Yeah.
You can infer anything you want during that time period. I feel like it was completely unnecessary. That I didn't learn anything new. It didn't give me any more insight into what was happening or his character. I could have, if I were more invested in the film, if I were more invested in his character, I could have got something from that, but I personally didn't, so I felt like it detracted from the story.
I like that scene, actually.
That was a good one.
For one, he was doing his exercise of like drowning out the demons with the towel over his face and his deep breathing, which is what he does with plastic bags when no one is looking.
Well, there you go.
That's what I was thinking about.
And when he came out of it, and he's breathing so hard, it's like he had just exercised a demon, something intense just finished. It was just, to me, it was just another glimpse into that this guy never stops fighting.
It's another coping mechanism.
That's why I love the end of this movie, because it does not have an end. Right. And someone who's had that kind of trauma cannot walk away into the sunset saying, well, I did it, life's better now. Like, it doesn't matter how that conflict ended, his life is filled with conflict and turmoil. He doesn't get to escape it.
Wait, the thing you said about him killing himself at the end, if that were real, I do think that actually would have been better.
I think that would have been worse.
Oh, worse?
I said I liked that.
Okay, well then I agree with you. Yeah.
I actually thought that was kind of cool that he had just shot himself, and I was waiting for everyone in the diner to react and freak out. But then I saw, I'm like, oh, okay, this is just in his head or something.
It is interesting because because it feels like that's the finality part of someone who's going downhill, someone
Right.
who's fighting so many demons, who's wanted to kill themselves so much already that they finally.
But that's just it. That a guy that would have betrayed
Yeah.
the character.
It would have.
Yeah,
It would have.
That Joaquin Phoenix would have never, if he was gonna kill himself, there was no way he would ever do it in such a public situation.
You mean Joe?
My bad, Joe.
Joaquin Phoenix may kill himself.
He would have done it in a public.
We're talking about Joe, the character.
Situation where he has a immediate responsibility, which has always
Right.
been. There's a couple times where he almost kills himself. He almost kills himself when he's putting his mother to rest,
Mm-hmm.
but then he decides he needs to
Which,
live.
by the way, was my
It's
favorite
beautiful.
scene in this
It's a
movie.
great scene.
I was like, instantly thought of The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
There was a shot that looked very Shape of Water.
Yeah.
But I love him filling his coat with
With
rocks so
yeah.
he can sink, and taking his mom down to the bottom
Yeah.
of the
And then
lake
drown.
and seeing her hair coming out
it's
of
gorgeous.
the plastic bag, and
Yeah.
that was beautiful.
Yeah. That was quite interesting.
Yeah. So it wouldn't make any sense for Joaquin Phoenix to actually die
Joe.
then. My bad, Joe. To actually die then.
We just need to be careful when we talk about switching names and characters.
I always use the actors.
And everybody like, when Joaquin Phoenix murdered a person, guys, all right.
Now he's going to go to jail because of us.
I had a quick analogy about this kind of feeling of interpretation. I'm wondering, have either of you guys seen a Picasso painting and not known what the subject was?
I can only think of 2 Picasso paintings in my head, so no.
So no. How about any painting that you didn't know what the subject was but actually did have a subject and then you learned about it later?
Yes.
Uh,
I could think of plenty of art. I mean, especially some of the more abstract leaning stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of sculpture work and things. Or you see, and I'm just like, that's interesting, but I have no idea what it's.
So there's a piece, there's a cubist piece, I don't remember what it's by, called Nude Descending a Staircase. Have you
Okay.
heard of that?
Don't
No?
Nope. There goes D wearing his educated badge again.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
pretentious.
This is sort of not a
him
popular
and his
painting
him
at
and his
all.
high art. Do inform us.
It's a blue painting that has a lot of white in it, but there's a bunch of lines everywhere. As with cubist paintings, they're supposed to see a subject almost from all sides all at one time. And so this nude descending the staircase has no person in it. It has no staircase in it. It's just a bunch of lines everywhere. When someone looks at the painting, they don't immediately think, oh yeah, nude descending the staircase. That's what that is. I believe the intention of the painter in that thing was to show the nude descending the staircase in a different light, not say, oh, I hope when people look at this, they say, what is that?
Sure.
And that's what I don't like about interpretive stuff.
Right. As in, they made it for them.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Do it for
Kind of
you
like
versus do
we
it for
saw a
others.
trailer before this movie that was in a square aspect ratio.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the trailer to suggest why it's in a square aspect ratio. Maybe the movie does, but my feeling is that it probably won't. And that if we dug deep enough, the answer would have been that at some point the artist behind the film said, we should do it in a square aspect ratio. That'd be kind of cool, which, it's going to completely change the whole piece, and it only makes me want to know why.
Right. That's really interesting that you brought up doing it for yourself versus do it for others. I think that blew my mind just a little bit.
See, that kind of thing that you're describing just doesn't even bother me in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
And I actually,
interesting.
opposite, I love that
Yeah.
about
Well,
art.
This is something that you had told me one time, Kenny, when I watched his short film. What was it called? The guy where he's deciding between objects. Do you remember what that was called?
Between objects? Oh, permanence.
Permanence.
Yeah.
So it was a film where Trent was walking into this area, tried to get a lock open and couldn't do it, and then like broke down. I asked you not to tell me what it was about first, and I watched it and then got something from it, and then I had Taylor explain to me what it was that he was going for, and our reviews completely clashed.
Sure.
And it's interesting that happened, but is there an error in that way of making art? Did you want people to know what you were talking about?
Not necessarily. I didn't really care what they thought.
There you go. Yeah.
I just
did it for yourself.
For myself, because I knew what it was, and it made me feel frightened.
Yeah.
And I felt like exercising a demon through it.
Interesting.
So
this is probably why I have such a passion in game design.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why.
Because it's all logic driven.
Maybe, yeah. Because there's a lot of inference in the game that I was making. There's a ton of it. There was zero storytelling in that game. It's all through interaction, but it's communicating via a medium, and I really like that idea.
Yeah. I identify very clearly with what both of you are saying, so I can't join a side here. I agree.
You generally agree.
I generally agree with both of you, because I've felt that frustration, and I've done exactly what you're saying. You know, and I think there's certain artists, and at times I am this artist who has to express a thing in my own way with complete disregard to a viewer.
Yeah.
You know, the film has looked very different because the audience is such an intimate part of the art itself. The movie is not done ever. It's a different piece of art every time it's exposed to another audience.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and in another setting.
Definitely.
And so, when you make a piece that's for yourself, it's always going to be held to that standard of what an audience does to it, what an audience will bring to it. You can't really escape that eye.
Yeah.
So,
though,
I mean, it's just, I mean, that's David Lynch.
Right, yeah.
You know?
And that's why he's one of my favorite directors.
Right.
Because and that's something that I it's not that I ignore the audience, and it's not that I like being ignored by a film. It's that I like being thrown into something that's just almost impossible to grasp. Well, I like being abrasively assaulted by someone's vision that they have for themselves. I like being exposed to extreme self-indulgence.
So it's all completely individual expressionism.
Yeah.
But trying to put yourself into that individual's experience is part of the fun of watching something like that.
And that's the part that I like a lot, is seeing that from their perspective and seeing what they were trying to do. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, there you have it.
Wow.
We've
transcended. This is cool.
We've come a long way here, haven't we? My goodness.
I thought this episode was going to be stupid. This is really cool.
Well, see what the audience has to say.
Well,
no, who cares about
forget
it?
them.
Yeah, who cares?
Well, here's
this
the
is just
thing.
Group therapy.
I think where film and writing stories, books, the real difference between it and many other art forms is that they are made for an audience. Storytelling was innovated to transfer information to other people.
Right.
Storytelling has never been for the teller of the story. Right?
Yeah.
And so
that's
so this concept
super good,
of making a film for yourself, the way you might do a painting as a form of like therapy.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a bit of a round peg in a square hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Though, I guess so.
You should make food that way too. Expressionist food.
Oh,
Like,
oh no.
I just really wanted to make this thing eat it.
It's sand. There's sand in it. Sand and nails.
There's nails.
That's exactly how a 5-year-old boy operates. It is.
I think that applies to a specific. Well, the way I see film is much wider than just storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't think film is. I don't think when I say a movie, I don't necessarily always mean storytelling.
Sure.
Right.
I think a visual piece, like Stan Brakhage, who just paints on each individual film of celluloid, abstract paintings, and just puts his leaves into it, and then just runs it through a projector.
Yeah.
I think that is a movie, even though it's completely visual.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell a story.
Right.
Right.
And doesn't even necessarily have the intent of a particular emotion, but is more, I really want to see what it looks like if I do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think cinema has transcended plays and storytelling, where it's not a form that's limited to storytelling.
Right.
Well, it's like performance art, I guess, is what
Yeah.
you'd say it would be.
It's I guess what I'm saying is it's just as much a visual art as it is as painting is, you know.
And
it
anything can be that way.
Approached that way.
Anything can. But I know what you mean. There's like motion pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Toots.
So square peg in a round hole, not to me.
Not you.
Not by my definition of what a movie
Oh,
is.
you're saying square peg in a non-defined hole.
I think a movie. It's
There's
a
no
circle.
peg.
Yeah.
There's no peg.
There is
There's
no
just no
peg.
There is no peg.
It's a circle peg in a circle hole, because that's what a movie is to me.
To you.
Actually,
What does the word yerba mate mean to you? Does it mean the
it
drink?
means soda.
Because to me, it doesn't mean that. It means actually chicken.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I respect that.
I don't. I can't get behind this, guys. I'm sorry. Have we run out of things to say
How
about
long did
You
we
Were
go?
Never Really Here? We're beyond 45 minutes.
It was a group therapy session.
I
Yeah.
can go forever, but
Yeah. So basically what we've gotten down to is that a good movie tells a story,
Not
and
always.
that we should always give information, not have the audience infer it.
Yeah. Never have the audience infer.
no
be
inference.
be as clear as possible.
Yeah.
Never ever express yourself.
Expositional. Good old fashioned golden age Hollywood. It's about you got to be a company man.
Real cameras are run by hand reels.
Yeah.
You know. Real
Women
photos.
should always be played by men.
Yes. Yes.
Of course.
Real
All right.
photos are always shot.
You
with
heard it
film.
here on the talkies. Next week we're seeing Terminal, which
yeah.
looks
Yeah,
like
it'll be
visual
interesting.
splendor.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be weird and hopefully really good. Margot Robbie is always a joy, and so we'll see how. Simon Pegg's in it. Mike Myers is in it.
He hasn't been in anything in like forever.
Not really. No. He did a sketch on the Jimmy Fallon show the other day where he reprised his Dr. Evil role.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Click,
Bait.
like,
It was a good video.
and subscribe.
And tell us
not
what
Jimmy
you
Fallon.
got-
Click, subscribe.
bait,
to
clickbait.
Talkies.
To Talkies.
Yes.
And let us know what you thought about subjectivity versus objectivity in the art of cinema.
And if you made it this
And
far,
maybe if
Or you could even say something about You Were Never Really Here if you saw the
want.
movie.
if you saw the movie,
If
which
you want.
of course we're not talking about the movie.
Yeah, we really did not talk very much about that movie.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it too.
Yeah, tell your friends and subscribe, and we will see you next time right here on the Talkies.
In our spaceship. Oh, Taylor, yours didn't make it, man.
No.
Let's try it again. Boom. Oh, Kenny, yours didn't make it. Oh, okay. I'm challenging your preconception of.
It's art.
Yeah, me too.
Art.
Art. Art. Art. Art. Art. Art.